Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are calling in from today. Welcome to webinar on practical tips to become a next generation leader. I'm going to give it another minute or so to allow people to join. I'm doing this now quite often, and my experience is that people usually take 10 minutes or something to join, so I expect more people to come. If not, I'm super happy that you are at least here. And I love smaller audience actually more because it's more intimate. And, in the end, we can have an open mic session where we can even interact with each other. For now, you're not able to jump in because usually unmuted people might have conversations in the background. So I've had quite some funny situations. That's why you cannot unmute yourself right now. But once we walk through and we are coming to the end, I'll be happy to be very personal and bespoke to you, with whatever keeps you busy at the moment. But I also have a sort of practical thing. I would like you to take your mobile phones out of your pocket. If you're a productivity hacker, you might have your mobile phone somewhere else. But use your mobile phone to scan this QR code here on the screen on the left. Yeah. It should get you to the screen of Slido. And in Slido, you can see the prompt of this question when you have used the QR code. Yeah. And then it asks you to answer the question. And you type basically in there, well, in this case, where are you from? So type in, where are you from? Like which city, which country? Lithuania. Great. So somebody figured out how Slido works. That's amazing. So we have Lithuania here. Okay, Sergey, great. You are putting it in the chat. I guess that you don't have your mobile phone with you to build this word cloud out here. So we have Spain on board. That's also amazing. Oh, wow. That's very, very on spot. It's almost, I would just ask you even for the GPS location, GPS coordinates. Kansas City, Missouri, USA. Wow, welcome. Amazing. California also here. That's amazing. Okay, so Slido is a tool that I use very often because I think that webinars are usually very one-sided, very one stream of information down. But in this way, we can all interact with each other without having an overwhelming conversation in an open mic. That we will do more at the end. So throughout this webinar, you will see much more of these prompts coming up related to the topic that I will speak about, and that way I can get your input, right? Okay, amazing. So I want to start with a story because, as you all have realized, the world is actually changing very fast. Like the speed of changes is enormous, and that means also for leadership. What's going to happen in business in the coming years? Well, AI is on the rise. We see that Gen Z is becoming the new workforce. Right now, it's like around 10% of the workforce is Gen Z, and they are a very different generation than the millennials were. So that's going to have an impact on leadership. We see that remote work is actually starting to become the norm now. It's not anymore a crazy thing to go remote with a company. And Gen Z is actually starting to demand this also. So remote work is going to be the norm. Workforce diversity is also rising, right? Diversity in many forms, multicultural, multi-background, multi-belief, and it's becoming a challenge for leaders to build that inclusive organizations where everyone, regardless of the background or beliefs or religion, feels part of the same organization. And then we have sustainability and social responsibility. That's actually not anymore a nice to have like it was a few years back. It would have been a sort of unique selling point, almost like we are a very sustainable company. Now, right now it's a demand. All companies the next few years must comply to CSR, ESG, everything related to sustainability and social responsibility. So automatically, because of this, the business leader is changing as well, a lot. And I would even argue that it's changing much more than in previous events, world events. So much have happened in the past 2 years that leaders need to reinvent themselves. But there's also an opportunity here, right? There's an opportunity for business leaders to actually do that reinvention and become what I would love to call the first breed of the next generation leader. The next generation leader is a leader that's inherently different from what we have probably all on this call have been used to seeing in our past own careers. And even though I'm myself not a Gen Z, I'm very passionate and fascinated about this topic. And so in my work with clients on leadership that have several different generations, for example, different cultures, different religions in the team, I love these dynamics that are going around in such organizations. I can see which leaders are doing well in such environments. And that's what I want to bring up today. So are you ready to rethink business leadership? I take that as a yes. So let's go. First, I want to bring up that I spoke with in the past 2 years with like more than 100 business leaders for sure. Not only my clients, but also in conversations, in podcasts I've been on. And I noticed that I have all something in common. They have challenges with adapting to new technology, challenges with managing a diverse multicultural workforce, something that I mentioned just in our story. They had a challenge to set purposeful business goals. We'll come to that also today, purposeful business goals. They have challenges with bringing autonomy to the organization without losing performance. And I think that has everything to do with companies still learning to go remote. They have challenges with attracting and retaining top talent, developing traits such as vulnerability, inclusion, and empathy. We see more feminine energy coming into the workplace. So even masculine male leaders need to get much more feminine traits here. So I want to ask you, and we're going to use Slido again for that. I would like to ask you, what of these items that I just mentioned, what are the things that are most challenging for you? For you as a person, maybe, but you can also answer from the perspective of the team that you're working in, right? Or the whole company you're part of. What do you see as the most challenging of these things for you? Okay, so I see that somebody is starting. Setting purposeful business goals. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot among my clients as well. Okay, developing traits such as vulnerability, inclusion, and empathy. Yes. Setting purposeful business goals is still the leading one. Okay, manage a diverse and multicultural workforce. Okay, yeah, definitely a challenge. Okay, so we have 9 people on the call. We have 5 replies right now. Bringing autonomy to the organization. Setting purposeful business goals and bringing autonomy to the organization. That is the number 1 and number 2 that are shared. Actually, it's a shared number 1, and we don't have a number 2. That's funny. So a shared number 1 and a shared number 3. Where did number 2 go? But okay, so it doesn't surprise me to hear this. I see that trend coming back a lot, and we're going to cover the things that are on this list today. That's why the goal of this webinar is to give you actually some practical tips, as practical as we can be in a 30 to 40 minute webinar on in what direction you should start to think as a next generation leader. Now, I don't want to call myself a self-proclaimed leader, because I believe that the title leader is something that you don't give to yourself. You get that from the people you work with, and they decide whether you are the leader or not. Leader among equals, right? That's what I think leadership is about. But a bit about me. I'm Leon van der Laan, originally Dutch, based in Lithuania, Eastern Europe. Long story how I got here, but the short story is my wife is Lithuanian. I'm founder of Remote. Remote is a boutique consultancy. I help companies, agency founders, mainly 80% of them, with leadership, development, and also organizational structure and goal setting and those kind of things. I was 19 years in H&M, several leadership functions, started at age 17 there, had also my first leadership role at that age. Been also in was a startup CEO for a year, very interesting journey. For the rest, I have passion for strategy and productivity, also a startup mentor. And I'm a father of a Gen Z YouTuber. Yes, my son is a YouTuber. He's 12 and typical Gen Z, absolutely. And his dream is to become a YouTuber, and he's actually doing it. He's getting more and more subscribers. So I'm learning a lot from Generation Z from my own son. So my timeline, like I said, I started at 17. I am a millennial myself. I am the early millennial, 1981. But when I started out in business, I was so young that I only worked with Gen X, Generation X. And I thought I was Generation X as well. But then Generation I, the millennials, they took over. And I realized like, hey, I fit actually much more with them. So I was able to work with both generations, having grown up with Gen X and suddenly, seeing that millennials are, hey, they're like me because I started so young, right, at age 17. So that's the way I get my first experience and fascination for different generations and organizations. Now, then the crisis hit, 2008. So, that was a whole different world. Like suddenly everything went down and, surviving a crisis in a business environment is an experience that many of the current people that were starting to enter the business world around 2010, they have never experienced any downturn or crisis. Hence why it's so much more difficult for them now as leaders out there to adapt to what's going on, right? Then I had several executive roles, but at age 36, I left the corporation. And now at age 41, I work around 20 to 30 hours per week. And I run a six-figure consulting business alone with some help from contractors. So let's dive right into practical stuff, right? That's why we are here. So you mentioned at number one that setting purposeful goals is a challenge for you. Okay, so one of the things that a next generation leader really knows how to do well is to instill purpose into people. And I'm going to be giving to you a structure that helps you understand how to do that. First of all, we need to always answer the question, why does our company do what it does? And it doesn't matter whether it's a tree cutting company or it's a company in law or a law firm, in other words. It doesn't matter. Every company has a reason why it was built in the first place. And that's what we need to answer. That's what we need to communicate to everyone in the organization. Because the thing with purpose is the why is that the why doesn't care about where you come from. It doesn't care about whether you are from one or the other religion or culture or gender or belief system. A why doesn't care about that, because a why speaks to a part that it's in all of us. We are equal on that level, right? So talking about an inclusive culture that we need to build as leaders, we need to start with purpose. That's already the first way how to communicate with everybody across the board. So then the next step is, what goals do we have that align with our company's purpose, right? And that's one of the top one things that you mentioned is a challenge. Well, you know that a survey by LinkedIn done was that 90% of professionals actually want purpose in their work. 90%. And I know also the figure that the percentage that has it is less than 20%. And 73% who feel fulfilled and engaged at work, they say that they actually have a purpose. So there's something to purpose here, right? It's like 90% of professionals. That automatically is very inclusive. So a shared purpose is something that unites people from all walks of life. you know, when you have a national, let's say you have the football World Cup, right? Suddenly it doesn't matter anymore from which country or which city team you are, or from which background at all. Everybody unites and everybody goes for one purpose, and that is our country is playing. Well, that is a shared purpose, and that we need in businesses much more. The millennial generation, they already wanted more purpose. So they were already more purpose-driven than the Gen X. That was the generation before the millennials. But with Gen Z, it's a whole different game. Millennials still seek job security because most of them grew through the crisis in 2008. So they learned to value having a job is more important maybe than having purpose, but they seek purpose actively. Gen Z, on the other hand, they just demand it. No purpose here. This is not my place. I will move on, right? So it's a whole different game now. It's not anymore. They don't seek job security. They seek purpose. So how do you do that? Well, I want to give you a structure that I also use for my clients, because the purpose is I hear even clients saying that it's fluffy. Like, you know, where does it sit? How can I analyze purpose? Which data tell me that there's purpose in my organization? Well, the truth is it doesn't. That's why I've, over the years, built a structure that at least gets as close as possible to answering those questions. And that is the following. First, we need in every organization to identify our why and our beliefs. Yeah. If you love to read about that, there's this book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. It's basically describing that whole idea of we need to understand why we do what we do, right? So what I do with my clients then is to set mission statement, vision statement, and core values. We call that the perspective of the company. Yeah. So a mission and a vision statement is a written verbal expression of that what you believe and why your company matters. Yeah? And your core values is what you stand for as a company, let's say as your personality, right? We people, we have values. Our friends share our values, our family, our culture. We have the same value as the culture we are coming from, or at least very similar. But that needs also to happen in organization in order to feel like we are belonging together. Because when we share values and we belong together, we much better and easier share also the same purpose. Okay? But that's where we need next generation leaders to be really focused on. Then we want to break down the mission and the vision statement into more tangible, more actionable stuff, big goals, I like to call them. Not big in terms of huge, but bold, inspiring, and guiding goals. I say ditch the SMART goals. I think the SMART goals is not anymore of these days. SMART goals do not give any sense of purpose to people. They are speaking about performance. I think they were invented also in the 60s or the 70s. Now, big goals, my definition of the new SMART goal. Why not SMART then, right? Well, we have a whole different structure now that we built under. I don't know if you ever heard of the OKR framework. This is my version of using OKR framework is to combine that with SWOT. SWOT is also a very old tool that I've sort of reinvented. And the SWOT is basically your most powerful tool to understand what is your status quo right now. What is your point of departure? So when you know your point of departure, like imagine you have Google Maps, right? If you want to calculate your location, your route to a new destination, one of the first things you need to know is where are we right now, right? So if you know where you are right now, where you want to be, mission, vision, big goals, then actually you're creating the gap between where you are right now, SWOT, and where you want to be, mission, vision, goals. That is what's going to give the work that your people do meaning, because you will break that down into objectives, right? For the year. You will break that down into quarterly objectives. The quarterly objectives become key results for the quarter. And the key results will become tasks. Okay, so you have everyone in the organization knows which tasks we're going to work on as a team in the next 1 to 5 days, this week. We know how that will result into key results, how that will give us results there. We know that the key results will give us the objectives that we need to achieve in order to achieve our big goals. But since our big goals come from a mission and a vision statement, we know that we are actually doing work with the task today that contributes to the purpose of the organization. And that's what I like to call the structure of purpose. And that has worked really well for many companies that I've seen struggling with setting purposeful goals. Yeah. So that is the way how to build purpose. So your people, especially Gen Z and millennials as well, I would say, they want to know, like, why does it matter that I do this task here today? So we have more purpose. Well, what happens? The talents will stay. You will have higher profits because more purpose means more engaged, more motivated people. More motivated people will always lead to higher profits. That's a simple equation. And it will lead to happier people. And well-being is something that, you know, more and more youngsters that are now entering the job market, they are looking for that. We older generations, as old as we can call ourselves, we are, you know, I think we got used to dealing with environments that might be not the most optimal because we value the job security, you know. But well-being is super important, you know. Burnouts on the rise, depression on the rise. I think that a large part had to do with the organizations not having adapted fast enough to the higher need for people to have a place where they actually feel good. Cool. That was practical tip number 1. Practical tip number 2, raise autonomy. I think it was also your number 2. A Harvard Business Review found that more autonomy leads to more engagement, more commitment, and higher well-being. So just like you did in the Slido, you combined purpose and autonomy together. That was like number 1 and number 2, right? And we just spoke about purpose, how that increases engagement and commitment. Now we have autonomy doing the same thing. This is the next decades are the decades of autonomous organizations. Autonomous organizations where there is actually self-driven people, because the organization is designed in a way that people know why we are doing what we're doing, how we're doing that. I have the tools, especially the technology, right, to do my work productive and efficient. I have great colleagues and a great culture that I'm working at. So I don't really need a leader anymore to tell me what to do and when to do it and how to do it. So when I don't need a leader to tell me what to do and how to do, then I'm more autonomous. So what happens with the leader then? Well, we come to that in another practical tip. The next one is the role of the leader is changing. It's not anymore the ones that drives the performance. It's someone else. We come to that. But let's talk about autonomy first. Take your phone out, please, and scan the QR code. You again go to the poll, and I would like to really understand what you think is the biggest killer of autonomy in organizations. Okay, so if you just jumped on the call, we did this already on the beginning. Yeah, I see somebody typing. This is a live poll where you can participate by sharing your thoughts. And as soon as you submit your answer, everyone will see it here on the screen. So what do you think is the biggest killer of autonomy in organizations? Micromanagement, anonymous. Bureaucracy and long processes. Yes. Poor performance. Yes. I think that's a result of low autonomy. Yeah, absolutely. Lack of productivity tools. Micromanagement culture forced by processes. Group thinking. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a good one as well. I don't touch on that one today, but psychological safety comes out of trust, right? Psychological safety is directly correlated to high performance in organizations. Trust is very often organization. Well, when I ask, like, how often, when was the last conflict that you have had? Oh, we never have conflicts. Then there's group thinking. Because if there's no group thinking, there are conflicts. And not the ego conflicts that everybody thinks about in the word conflict, but conflicts that are productive conflict. There's Patrick Lencioni write very cool books about how teams function on that level. There's one book that I really recommend you reading if you want to understand how that productive conflict is actually your biggest sign of trust and lowest group thinking is the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Patrick Lencioni, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Very cool book about all these topics here as well. Great. Thank you for your input. Very interesting. Yes. The one thing I want to bring up today, what is the biggest killer, also in my opinion, for autonomy is micromanagement. And I think there is a big misconception around micromanagement. And that's because great people like Ken Blanchard, I don't know if you ever heard of Ken Blanchard, I read a ton of his book as well. He is the writer of the famous book, The 1 Minute Manager. It's a bit outdated book already. I would say that management has developed ever since, but worth giving it a read. And he writes that micromanagement is a sign of insecurity. It is a way for leaders to feel important and needed, but it's a trap that ultimately undermines their own success and that of their organization. Now, I do agree to some extent that there are some leaders out there that micromanage because of a sign of insecurity, but it's too generalized. I think there is a lot of micromanagement happening in disguise, meaning that there are good intentions, there are good people behind, and they are not aware that the way how they're managing, especially their remote organization, that is actually micromanagement. And it kind of creeps in without that you're realizing it. Micromanagement can take over a part of the organization, especially when you don't have purposeful goals. Yeah, I mean, you're not clear where it is that you want to go. You become a more reactive organization because you're proactive when you know where you want to go. You're reactive when you come at a corner of a road and you're deciding, am I going left or right? And that is where micromanagement happens. So to all the managers and leaders out there, if somebody ever tells you you're micromanaging me, you've probably never intended to micromanage someone. So let's talk about micromanagement and how to avoid the micromanagement in a disguise, okay? So one of the best ways to you as a leader, or whether you're a team leader or a CEO of a company, it doesn't matter. One of the best ways to avoid micromanagement is to only figure on the outcomes and not on the process. So in other words, you given high-level goal where you want the organization or the department or the team to go. You agree that goal, but you let them figure out how to get there. And you train yourself not to intervene in the process. Then you might ask, okay, but then how do I know whether or not we are performing? I come to that in a sec. Because you check in only when the person needs. The problem with micromanagement is that managers, they check in with the people when they want to have a check-in moment because they want to know what is going on. I want you to turn that around. If you want to get a tip from me to reduce micromanagement in the organization, agree with the person when that person needs a check-in with you. And if you are actually experiencing that from your superior, from your team lead, or whoever has the accountability to take decisions for the organization, give that to the person and say, look, can we agree? Because I don't need to have 5 check-ins per week. For me, 1 per week is enough, and I will make sure that you get exactly all the detailed information that I can give you at that moment on the state that we are in, for example, achieving this specific goal or completing a task. So as a leader, go away from checking in from you. Agree up front and let the person tell you when they want a check-in, okay? Because we are all different people, talking again about inclusivity, and everybody has his own communication style. Some people need more, other people need less. But talking about being an inclusive leader, in other words, tailoring your leadership approach to the individual needs of your people, let them decide that. Yeah. Number 3, this is a tough one, I know, because we feel when there are mistakes, it will be detrimental for the business. But talking about inclusivity, talking about new generation coming up, try not to reprimand anyone for mistakes that are made once, and use those mistakes as a learning opportunity for the whole team. Now, how does this go in practical? If you encourage people to share what error they might have made, right? You are essentially giving them trust. When you show the whole organization as a leader that you, for example, in a weekly session, you bring up all the learnings from last week on mistakes that have been made, you're creating an environment of open and transparent communication around mistakes. That is one of the best things you can do to raise trust in the team. Besides that, when people have a high level of trust, automatically there is less micromanagement, and they are more proactive. So the knife cuts in both ends. There's less need for micromanagement because there's a high level of trust, and they will be more proactive towards you as a leader because they know that making mistakes is not a problem. It's about learning together. I unfortunately see still lots of organizations where there is, I would say, a wrong approach towards dealing with mistakes. And that, yeah, we need to give a conversation with this person because that person jeopardized our business, and we might lose the client because of it. That's putting a lot of emotional pressure on the person. Whereas you can achieve the same thing and even much better when you say, great, this has happened. What can we learn out of this to avoid that in the future? And share that with the whole organization. And with the note that, look, this person, that person last week had that learning with that client. This is what we should avoid, all of us. This is how we should avoid this, how we do it. And let the person even speak up about his or her own learnings in making that mistake. Super, sounds small, but super, super powerful. And it will help you a lot to create more autonomy in people. Because autonomy in the end is also daring to make mistakes. So what happens then? More autonomy, more engaged, more commitment, higher well-being, thanks to more killing micromanagement. Talents will stay, higher profits, happier people. Yeah. Practical tip number 3. And now we go more into this, what we also saw in the survey. What are those traits that the next generation leader needs to develop? And there are quite some. I probably cannot cover them all today. That's why I want to ask you first, what do you think are the traits of a next generation leader? So think about all the changes that are happening right now in the world of business, in companies, in teams, and take your phone, scan the QR code, and share your thoughts with the audience. What do you think are the traits of a next generation leader? Unlearning. Okay, that's an interesting term. I'm not sure if I ever heard that. probably my English vocabulary is not that extended. I've not heard that. Maybe you can elaborate on that. Trust. Okay. Question: trust a trait, or trust is a result of a leader consistently using the right traits to the right person? But yeah, trust is a leader in general, not necessarily the next generation of leaders, need to be role models, right? We can only trust someone who is practicing what he or she's himself or herself preaches, right? We can only trust such persons. If a person thinks that for him or her there are different rules, that's not a role model, and that will not create trust. Alphas. I'm also not sure what I have to make up with that one, but thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. So here are my traits that I believe that are more essential than ever. And the first one is something that you probably have heard very often so far, and it sounds even cliche, but I just want to really emphasize that one again, and that is empathy. Not everybody is an empathic person by nature, but everybody can practice empathy. How? Well, there are three very practical things you can do. Yeah? The one-on-one in this world of business is your absolute friend. Yeah, because in the one-on-one with person, you're not talking about performance here. You're talking about individual needs. What were your challenges? What have you faced? What do you think we can do different? What have you come up with last week? What projects are you working on that you actually don't really want to work on? What projects are you not working on that you really would like to work on? How do you feel in the team? This is such an important aspect right now in the vast diversity and changing and fast adapting environments where people work in. So listen to individual needs, especially through your ones-on-ones, and tailor your leadership to the person is one practical thing you should do daily. Another one is to understand the impact of your decisions. Yeah. I've seen many clients, or not just even clients, also companies, still living in that style of leadership where we are just deciding, putting it on the organization, expecting them to just roll with it. Yeah, that will not really work anymore in the future. If you ask me, that's my perspective. Because when I look into the generational differences, the early millennials, the later millennials, there's already a difference there. And then the Gen Zs coming up. If you don't involve or include them, regardless of their background, yeah, religion, culture, you name it, they will not choose your company. They will not stay at your company because they will not find this well-being and belonging that they are looking for. They will choose the companies based on whether or not there is involvement and inclusion. Then the third thing is to show vulnerability. Now, this is a very weird topic to me. It has been a very weird topic to me because I always had the idea that vulnerability had to do with weakness. You know, why should I act like I am weak? But when I look back into also even my corporate career, when I was a young guy, and we're talking even 15, 20 years ago, right? One of the best moments that I experienced in breakthroughs with trust and everything with my team was actually when I was vulnerable. So how does that work then? Well, there was this one day where I just decided from one day to another that we would open our distribution center in logistics also on Saturdays. But people were never working on Saturdays. But I just decided that. And so I didn't evaluate the impact of my decisions. And that became a big problem for everyone, and like huge. Like people were really angry with me. They even wanted me gone from the company. Like true story. But I realized my mistake and I called everyone, all 200 people in one room. And I apologized in front of 200 people. And I said, I'm sorry, I made a miscalculation, mistake. It was wrong for me to just not listen to your needs and put this decision on you. And I'm sorry that I did that. And I learned from that. And I know now how to do different. That's vulnerability. I admitted that I'm not a perfect person, and no manager should do that, especially not now when I'm looking towards the future. That's vulnerability, and Gen Z really looks for that. The second trait that I believe is going to be increasingly more important for leaders is, and that's talking about this changing role of the leader. The leader is not anymore the one who drives the performance, especially not with AI also coming. Like, there will be systems that will understand the performance much better than we humans. What is it that AI will probably not replace very soon? And what also the newer generations need, and what people from different backgrounds need? More coaching. Yeah. So the leaders that invest right now in becoming better coaches instead of a performance driver are going to be the leaders that will be wanted in companies, and going to be leaders for whom people want to join the company. The second actionable thing you can do in that coaching aspect is to play with the team together. So what does it mean? Like, not sitting in your ivory tower, which I honestly, in my early management career, did, because that's what I thought a manager did, literally, sitting in the office and giving directions. But I have a friend in the Netherlands, and he has a storage business. And sometimes he just puts his polo shirt on with his logo on there, and he jumps into this Volkswagen bus, and he just starts to drive to clients. While he's the CEO of the company, he founded the company. That is what playing with the team is about. So you might be the leader, but you're equal among others, and you do the same work whenever you can. Of course, you have your own responsibilities and accountabilities too, but if there's an issue, you jump in and you play with the team. That is a trait for leaders that will be so much more important now with all the changes that are going on. And then the third thing that you as a coaching leader can do is learn better questioning. Because I had also this misconception when I started out my management career that as a manager, I should have an answer on everything. So whenever somebody would come to me, I would either answer, or I would say, I will come back to you. And then I would come back and give them the answer. But actually, the coaching leader is very good in questioning. So give less answers, but learn questioning really well. I like to say that go discover this iceberg under the water. You do that by putting questions back to the person to help them discover their own answer, their own wants and desires, their own solutions to their own problems. Why would you tell people to do what they do? Why would you hire them if you need to tell them what they need to do? They need to tell you. And through better questioning, you can become that leader that really know how to coach people. And then the last one, the third one of what I believe are the three of many essential traits, is to being adaptable. Change management is a thing that becomes more and more important. I think that every leader out there should get change management skills to understand what is the transition curve that people go through emotionally and psychologically, because there will be so much changes coming over the years. They talk about a recession. They talk about AI taking over, jobs becoming basically eradicated. There is this ECG and social responsibility that will change the way how organizations will look like and how they function. So the leaders of the future are more busy with change management than actually daily execution and work, because there will be so many changes. So getting change management skills is an investment that I'm investing in myself, and I would greatly advise to every leader out there. The second one is to learn self-critical thinking. And this comes, of course, out of also this emotional intelligence sitting there, right? And if we look into empathy, right? We look into coaching, we look into being an inclusive leader. What you need for that is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is something that you can learn. Yeah, there come other aspects with it as well. But it's something you can develop. And one of the aspects in being great at emotional intelligence is to learn self-critical thinking, because the lack of adaptability to new situations usually comes from our own ego. Yeah, our own ego opposes the change for whatever reason. Our own ego wants to stick to what we have created, not what somebody else wants to bring up. So it's kind of taking the ego out of the daily work life that will help you to be more adaptable to the changes that are coming and the individual needs from others as well. Self-critical thinking is a great one. I do every Sunday evening a self-critical assessment where I ask myself challenging questions. It's quite interesting what you sometimes write to yourself. Then the third one, to become more adaptable as a leader, is learning and growth. Really establish a sort of internal academy for your people. Google was one of the earliest ones with this. I don't know if you ever heard of the Aristotle project, and I don't know if you know how Google functions, but they invest approximately 20% of their time in learning and growth, meaning experimentation, trying new things. And as far as I know, all the Gmail, Google Calendar, all these things, they come out of that 20% of learning and growth time that they give their people. Now, Google is considered to be one of the most amazing companies to work for. And this is something that all companies out there, small, medium, large, need to leverage, is to provide, especially the later millennials and the early Gen Z that's entering the job market, to provide them with learning and growth opportunities. And make this really an agenda item, not something like on the side, but this is one of the few things that we actually put our time and effort in, because that will not only get the maximum out of your people, it will also retain them and attract them if you use your employer branding to tell that you're a place where you can learn and develop. That is a next generation leader trait, really. So what happened where you work on your empathy, your coaching, your adaptability? Those, I believe, are the three most important traits for the next generation leader. Talents will stay, even will come, higher profits, happier people. Now, if you look into, and we probably can extend this webinar for another few hours, because leadership is a very complex topic. I believe you're never done developing yourself as a leader. You never reach this pinnacle from now I'm sort of produced. How ready are you for the next generation of leadership? So if you want to join in, take your phones. You can scan the QR code on the left, and then you get the question, and you can choose there. How ready are you? And okay, so the sad smiley is, we still need to start with developing into the direction. And if you have the hearted eyes, then you are actually totally ready. You got this. Yeah. So we see some things coming in. So far, we have 2 votes, and well, all on the good side, I would say. That's amazing. So one is even super excited about being ready for next generation leadership. Great. We need that. We need to see more of that. We have 3 out of how many we are at the moment? We are 11. Okay, so if you still want to join in, give it another minute or so. Okay, we have 3 now. Okay, so we can say that there's probably quite a wide range of companies that know that they still need to do some work there, and companies that have been very adaptable in a way and saw what's coming and needed to change change leadership. Okay, there's some planes flying over here today. So let's summarize, okay? So what can you do as a next generation? How do you become a next generation leader? Well, the first thing is you have to raise purpose. Yeah, there's a framework you can use to align the team in one direction so that everyone understands what I'm working on today makes sense because it contributes to that bigger picture. Involve the team in planning for execution, and refresh and repeat that often. It's not something you do once per year and then you come back to it next year. You have to incorporate it really in your daily work. Then we want to kill micromanagement, focus more on outcomes, less on the process. Take mistakes as learnings for the whole team, not just to the person. Check in with the team members when they need it, not when you need it. And then develop the traits. Practice empathy, be more vulnerable because that will make you a more authentic leader. Be a better coach, learn how you do coaching, what kind of questions do you ask, and play with the team when there is a need. And then build adaptability, by, for example, an internal academy to increase learning and growth, because skills in the end are the things that will help you to navigate the changes. Learn change management as well, and practice self-criticism as a leader. Now, 2,000 companies like people like you here on the call, they have already benefited from the bespoke leadership and organizational programs that I've been designing the past 2 years. Because I work one-on-one as a coaching consultant for companies like yours, and I built the remote framework, which is also the name of my company. Reflect, elevate, model, objectify, delegate, and excel. And I would help you when I wouldn't share what others have benefited from it. And for example, I work with Jure, who grew from 9 to 32 people, and I was helping them with mission, vision, values, OKRs, and an organization around it. And he says that I helped him to take leadership to the next level. And that's what Jure said. And I'm also working with Daniel, and Daniel said I help them become better leaders. We improve leadership. I work also with their team management, like their junior manager. I have now a 6-month program designed for them. I help them to build a perspective with vision and mission, streamline processes, structure their team for remote. That's Daniel. And there's some more. There's Raminta, who said that guided her through setting efficient strategies and OKRs, and they are now operating in a much more open and inspiring environment. So the Raminta is definitely a next generation leader now. And Johan also, I helped with becoming one of the market leaders, internationally remote company. He had 5 offices before, and now they're fully remote, and I have been a large contribution towards that change. They're also a next generation company. Now, just question to you, do you think it's time to start developing you and your organization now, or is it something for you later? Is it that you want a more resilient, profitable, and attractive company, or you just want to be ready for the future as a next generation leader? Well, I will just want to share with you how I could potentially help. I do one-on-one leadership coaching, usually with founders and CEOs. I also develop leadership development programs for junior managers who either just entered the job or want to grow to the next stage. I also work with full company teams, 3 to 6 months usually, to build a whole new vision for the organization and a plan around it. And I also do 1 or 2 day workshops and trainings for companies who just want a small nugget rather than a longer term process. So if anybody on the call, when you're ready to learn more about this, you can book a consultation with me. I will share that in the links in the chat in a minute. What you will get is I will ask you insightful questions about your organization when it comes to purpose, leadership. I'm just finding the link real quick here in the chat. Just so that I don't forget. Okay, it's not working as I hoped. No. unfortunately, I got not working. You're getting an email also as a follow-up on this call, so you have it in there as well. Yeah, so I will give you also a finalized, personalized report after that call. And if I wasted literally 1 second of your time during that call, you will work 6 weeks for free with me. That's how sure I am that even one call will give you so much benefit and insights in your own level of leadership and the state of your organization, that if that's not the case, you work 6 weeks for free with me. But I cannot work with everyone. I usually work only with agencies that have digital product or service, have high 5 or low 6 figures monthly revenue, teams of 10 to 50 people. They're either working already remote or aspiring to, have a growth ambition, and want to get ready for the next generation of leadership. I also work with companies that are outside of this. I've worked with companies of 300-400 big, even here in Lithuania, with companies like Tesonet, for example, for more targeted topics. And yeah, so that's I do that as well. But this is the sweet spot. If you fit in there, then I can help you for sure. So when you're ready, the link is in the chat. If you like the content of this webinar and you like the topic of this webinar, then I want to suggest that you also join me on my newsletter. I write every Saturday morning on topics around leadership and organization. So if you want to go deeper, I'll just paste it here in the chat. That's the link to newsletter, and it's just free value stories that I experienced myself. And yeah, that is what I wanted to share with you today. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm willing to go a few minutes over. You can write either your questions here in the Slido, or you may also just unmute yourself. I will just unmute up. So everyone who wants to jump in with a question, feel free to do that, if you like. See lots of famous faces actually on the call today. Now that I open also the screens. Thanks, Sultan. Great to have you here. Thanks, Vanessa. It was nice to have you on the call as well. I see also Abigail, famous name. Andre, famous name as well. Nice. So today was a lovely session with people that I admire and connect with on a almost daily basis, actually. That's nice. Great. Okay, so I think that the minds on the call are deeply reflecting on the topic and the content of the webinar. And yes, so Heidi, I think that's how I pronounce it. Tomorrow, you will receive an email and a LinkedIn message with a link to the YouTube channel where the video will be posted. So yes, you get a recording of today. Okay. I'm super grateful and appreciate a lot for you being here today with me on the webinar. I hope you enjoyed it and it was valuable for you. And I'm doing regular events, so stay tuned, stay posted. Follow me on LinkedIn if you like. Can post it also here. Well, you're following me already, otherwise you wouldn't be on this call. Amazing. Great, guys. So have a great continuation of the day, and I look forward to hosting you on any of our future webinars. Take care. Bye-bye.